right, well, welcome everybody. This is Just Ask Julia, where we share tips, trends, and insights and resources to help you transform your career and elevate your success. I am Julia Holian. I will be leading today's session on how do you safeguard your summer job search. If you are watching this session live today, we will have a Q&A session after this presentation. So feel free to stay on and ask us any questions about today's topic, or they could be about other things such as your resume or LinkedIn or networking or interviewing. We are happy to help. If you are watching this as a recording, then you can feel free to click the link in the description below and you will be able to sign up for future Just Ask Julia sessions where you can ask us questions live as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I am really excited to talk about this because as a former recruiter, I have so many thoughts on what the summer can mean to a job seeker. So we are going to talk about how do you move through the summer months and take advantage of it and have a good summer job search. We're going to talk about what shifts in the summer hiring market, so you have a little bit of clarity on that, why your summer is really a competitive window for you. We're going to go through a weekly plan because it's so helpful to come out of these and say, okay, Julia or Liz, if she was leading it, told me all these things, but I need to have a plan. Well, we're going to set you up with the plan. And then we're going to also talk just a little bit about what the fall means in your job search and why your summer is kind of the launch pad for it. So we're going to cover that as well. So let's jump into talking about a few myths or a myth for your summer job search and how we can kind of debunk that. So the myth is hiring basically stops in the summer. I should wait until fall. I'm going to tell you all, I am a former recruiter. I was a finance recruiter in the Bay Area for over 20 years. Hiring does not stop in the summer. But a lot of job seekers do stop. So let's talk about what really happens in the summer. So starting with, did you know that 15 to 20% of all jobs postings actually do slow down? So there is a slowdown. That still means that about 80 to 85% of the job postings that are out there are live. They're ready to go. I know there's a lot of conversation about what's a real posting and what's not. We're not going to talk about that today. We've talked about that in other sessions, but just keep in mind that the postings do slow down, but don't look at what's not there. Look at what still is there. Additionally, what we see is that even though the job postings may have slowed down a little bit, the biggest drop off is actually in the job seekers who keep their job search going during the summer. So the applications actually drop by 30 to 40%. That means you can stand out in the process. That means that there are fewer people who are applying, and therefore you almost have a better shot of being seen in the summer months. Additionally, they're still hiring during the summer. 10 to 15% of all annual hires actually close between June and August. There's a lot of hiring. So as I said, I was a recruiter for a long, long time. You know when my two best months were? Often July and December. I would say March was usually a good one too. July and December were often my biggest, best months for hiring. And I think it's interesting that people look at those 2 months being in time periods when things aren't really happening, but they are. So don't take your eye off the ball in the summer. So what really happens in the summer, just so you kind of have an idea of like what's really slowing down, what's happening. So what changes is that because of vacations and things that are happening in the corporate offices, response times slow down, which is already a big frustration for everybody. I hear it every single day where people will say, I applied or I had an interview and I didn't hear back for, a couple of weeks. I can't speak to that because it's my biggest pet peeve of how the recruiters out there are handling the process. That was like the worst thing you could do when I was a recruiter. But it does happen. And still in the summertime now, we are seeing that your response time to hear back is probably going to get stretched out even more. Just just know that. The interview loops slow down around the office, meaning when you go maybe 4 rounds of interviews, the stretch time between those interview moments gets pushed out. So you might have your first interview and then your second interview, which would likely in most situations be a week later. They could be 2 or 3 weeks later. A lot of that just has to do with vacations and things moving around in the office. So all of these things get stretched out. I would also say that the HR teams, they're usually running short because this is when people take their time off. There are weddings, there are, beach trips, there are things that are happening. So the HR teams might be running at kind of short staff. And then the one thing that people don't take into account, especially when we get to the month of August, is that budgets start being worked on usually in late summer. A lot of companies start that in August. I've actually known of a few companies last year that started in July. When they do that, what happens on that corporate side is that companies say, well, we know we've got these positions open, but you know what? Let's just kind of slow the roll on them a little bit because we're going to be doing the budgets, and that might actually change a few things. So that sometimes slows down the hiring a little bit in terms of like the speed of it. What doesn't change, though, is that roles still keep getting approved. People leave the company. They realize that they've got projects that need to be worked on. So roles still keep getting approved and filled. Hiring managers still have a head count, and they want to use up that head count before their budgets actually start to change. So any of you who are in finance, you know that it's a lot of times it's kind of like a use it or lose it for a lot of teams. So hiring managers are thinking, okay, well, I've had this into my budget to hire. I haven't done it. They're about to go do the budgets again. I better get this job filled as quickly as possible because I don't want anybody to say, oh, well, you've gone this long without it, you don't really need it. So they have their eye on trying to fill those roles. Offers still get made in June, July, and August. So that does not change at all. I would also say that there are big projects that are always happening throughout the year. So those ongoing projects need staff to make sure that they hit their goals. I used to see this a lot in the summertime where companies would say, you know what, we've got this big project that we're working on, but we are behind and we're really afraid that we're not going to hit the completion date or we're going to get behind for these other reasons. So they bring in project staff. Sometimes they hire to their team. A lot of things happen that way just to kind of get the project moved forward. And if you didn't know this, the statistic used to be when I was a recruiter that 65% of all of my people that I put on a temp project would end up getting hired. A lot of companies like to bring people in for those projects, and then if they like that person and they think that they're really great, they find a role for them. It still happens all the time. I don't know if the stat is still the same of 65%. That was consistent for me year over year over year. But I would say that still is a great way for you to get your foot in the door, meet people, show what you can do, add value. And then when there are positions coming open, or sometimes even positions get created, you're in the right place for that. And then the last thing to keep in mind is that a lot of people resign actually before summer, and people don't actually keep that or take that into account. But there are a lot of people who, if they are dissatisfied with their job or they know that something's going to change, they will decide to check out in May or June so that they can enjoy the summer. And that opens up new roles. So keep that in mind, that there's often a replacement factor that happens in the summer because those people were like, I know I'm going to leave. I might as well leave now so that I can enjoy the summer and drive the kids to swim practice and, take some summer drives, and that way those positions are open. So when you're looking at your summer, keep in mind it is less competition. There's usually more access and it's better timing. So calendars are also lighter for the people who are back in those corporate offices, whether it's HR, recruiting, the hiring managers. Their calendars are lighter. They have fewer meetings in the summer because there are fewer people around. So that means with fewer meetings and fewer deadlines having to meet during the summer, those decision makers are more likely to read when you reach out to them. So if you're reaching out to them on LinkedIn, or you've got their email and you're sending them an email, or you know them from the past and you have their cell phone number and you send them a text, they're more likely to respond during the summer because they're not bogged down by all of the other things that have them running, in different directions throughout the year. The summer pace slows down a little bit for them too, and they're often more responsive. Also, they're usually less stressed. I can say this for a fact when I was recruiting, and even today when I check in with my former clients who are now working in jobs, they come into the summer, and I think there is something about warm weather and people maybe taking a half day on Friday. There's just a little bit of relaxation, if their kids aren't in school and so they don't have all those projects due. Hiring managers just aren't buried the same way during the summer, so they're a little bit less stressed. And when they're less stressed, they're more likely to have a conversation with you. So look at the two of these side by side. They have fewer distractions and they're a little bit calmer. Those two things pulled together mean that those people are more likely to talk to you over the summer. And then the last thing I just want to mention is that what you do in the summer really tees you up for what happens in the fall. So we call it a September surge. A lot of times positions really open up in September. The budgets have started. So companies who maybe haven't finalized the budgets, those department heads are saying, you know what? I see what's coming down the pike. I'm going to start looking at hiring. They've got those projects that are due by the end of the year. So they've been doing this during the summer, but boy, peak time hits in September where all of a sudden there's this panic. We don't have all the people that we need. We're not finishing the projects. We've got to get things done. We've got to meet our budgets. And so the September surge is a real thing. And so you want to make sure that you are in a position for that. And the way you do that is you build that throughout the summer. All the people that you talk to, all the outreach that you do, all the conversations that you have, they make you top of mind for the summer or for the September month. Let's talk now about some shifts that I really want you to make. And so we've got 6 different shifts that we're going to cover. The first one is if you're thinking about volume applications, we want you to shift that from volume to visibility. Instead of applying or reaching out to a ton of people, be really targeted about what you're doing in the summer, because now we know that there are people who are less stressed and they've got a little bit more time. They're more likely to talk to you. So be very targeted about how you reach out so that you create that visibility. Stop counting your submits, start counting your conversations. Myth number 2, your motivation needs to really shift into rhythm. We're going to talk on one of the next few slides about how you block out your time throughout the week, but we want you to create a process, a rhythm, a cadence, so that you are keeping yourself going during the summer too. Because it's really easy during the summer to think, oh, the weather's beautiful. I'd rather go sit by the pool or take a walk. And I want you to do all those things, but I don't want you to do that at the expense of having a good rhythm in your job search. Third, try not to do what we call the spray and pray way of mass applying. We want you to actually try to go around the ATS. And Liz and I talk a lot about this. So for those of you who are not familiar with our company, Career Transformation Partners, we work with our clients to help them create a job search strategy, a networking strategy, and how to get around some of those gatekeepers. You want to think about that during the summer. It's easier in the summer to get people's attention. So we want you to go around the ATS and look at that direct outreach, finding that hiring manager, writing very specific notes to people who have either posted the job or that are hiring or are in a company in a certain department where they are likely to hire somebody like you, this is the time to reach out to them. And we have other Just Ask Julia sessions that you can find on YouTube where we talk about that. So if you want more information about that, check that out or reach out to Liz and me directly. Fourth shift. Instead of looking at kind of being scattered in your job search and how you talk about yourself, we want you to have a sharper story. So this is your time to because you're going to relax a little bit on the aggressiveness of your job search, but you're going to have a very strong rhythm. This is also your time to work on yourself, to refine how you talk about yourself, who you are, what you do, why you do it, but most importantly, the value that you bring. Because you could talk all about work and tasks, but you really want to talk about the impact and value that those actions create for a company. This is your time to make sure you've got those narratives locked down. Fifth shift, going from invisible to visible, and this predominantly is on LinkedIn. We've talked about this a lot, but LinkedIn is really critical in your job search. A lot of people focus on their resumes. I've got to have a resume. I've got to get my resume done. I'm going to keep working on my resume, and then I'm going to apply for jobs. The fact is, more recruiters are looking for you on LinkedIn, and they're less likely to be posting their jobs. So the job postings we already saw goes down by 15 to 20%, but also recruiters are spending more time looking for you. So we want you to be active in LinkedIn. We want you to post periodically. I know you don't always like to do that, and we talk about that, so you can reach out to us and we can give you some tips. We want you to comment. Commenting is like the gold of LinkedIn. So comment, optimize your headline and your profile. Make sure that LinkedIn is working for you, because it is like your search partner, like your running mate in your search. And so you want to make sure that you're highly visible on LinkedIn so that you're getting found. And then the last thing, the sixth shift, and this is an important one, switching from being invisible to visible. What does this mean? It means get out of the house. Get out from behind your desk. Go meet people. If you can do one-on-ones, that's great. If there are events to attend, that's great. Part of going out and meeting people at events, it could be networking events, they could be meetups, they could be symposiums, they could even be volunteering, just getting out and talking to people. When you are in a job search and you are kind of isolated in your home, to be honest with you, a lot of people lose their edge on how they talk about themselves. So look at that number 4 shift of having a sharper story and combine that with the number 6 shift of wanting to be visible. Those two things really work together. You want to know how to talk about yourself, talk to other people, ask really good questions. And so you have to keep kind of sharpening that saw. You can't just expect that you can turn it on. It's not like a light switch that you can turn on and off. It's a skill that you build. And part of the way of building that is to be out and visible in front of other people. All right, let's talk now about what you should be doing in your job search. Now, I stole this slide from Liz's presentation last month. So if any of you want to go back and see how she laid out creating a strategic job search, go look at the YouTube video from last month. This is one of the slides in there. And it's a very important slide to us, because when you are in a job search, there are 5 channels that you have to keep alive and moving during your job search. Number 1, you should be looking at job postings, and you should be researching the jobs that are out there, and you should be applying at times. But when you look at those job postings, I don't want you to just look at what jobs should I be applying to. I also want you to think about that as like every time you see a job posting, you're learning that that company hires for a department that you would be in. So even if the job isn't perfect for you, you're learning that, guess what? They hire people like you. Like maybe that's not quite right, but you sort of be at the next desk over. That's information. That's information that's a company that you might want to have on your target list, which I know is number 4, and we'll get to that. But use that job search process or looking at the job postings as kind of like a research project. Second thing in your 5 channels, you've got to network. You got to be talking to people, reaching out to people. I like the idea of paying it forward to people and congratulating them when you see that they're doing things. But networking is really an important piece of your job search. Third is talking to recruiters. A lot of times people think of recruiters inside companies, and that's obviously where you want to try to meet some of those people, especially in your target companies. But I would say you also do want to talk to agency recruiters. They often handle confidential searches that they don't want the internal staff to be working on. They are often working on the positions that are filling projects because they have a big pool of people that they can go to. They also specialize in certain areas. So you want to find those opportunities that might not be posted out there, but recruiters are handling them. Fourth, and this is a really important one, you want to have a target list of companies that you're looking at. A lot of people debunk this. I hear a lot of people say, you know what, I'm just going to go search for what jobs are out there. You want to also know which companies hire people like you. So you're looking at job postings can lead to building out your target list, but also everybody that you talk to, you want to ask them, who should I be looking at? What companies do you know are hiring? What companies have reached out to you before? Who should I have on my radar? You want to build a list of target companies, and then you want to look into them, and then you want to see who would be the hiring managers. Who would you want to talk to maybe in HR, and start just strategically looking at how you can get your foot in the door at that company. Last is LinkedIn. We've already talked about that a little bit, but LinkedIn's algorithm changed this last year. If you want to learn more about that, go back and look at the YouTube video for our Just Ask Julia sessions from December, where we talked about the new algorithm. You can't have just a profile up and be searching for jobs. You've got to be active in LinkedIn in a myriad of ways. It doesn't have to be super time consuming, but you've got to be consistent with it. And there is a rhythm and structure to how you should be working on LinkedIn, but that is a very important part of your job search today. All right, what is this going to look like on a weekly basis? So this is kind of breaking out what your summer job search campaign can look like. So on the left-hand side, we've got the applications, the networking, the LinkedIn, looking at recruiters, events and industry forums. Those are some of your pillars that you're going to be looking at. You can break it up like this if you want. Like, what am I going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? You can break it out this way. Here are the things that I'm going to do. Some people like to break it up differently and say, you know what, Monday is going to be all my applications, and Tuesday is going to be all my networking, and 3 is going to be all my LinkedIn. You can do that too. We just want to make sure that you've got a consistent process, that you've got a rhythm that you're working on. And this is usually in the summertime, I would say 10 to 15 hours a week. I'd say outside of summer, we recommend that people are in their job search somewhere between 20 to 30 hours a week. I don't think it's a full-time job. And I'll tell you why. When you are in a job search, it goes through these cycles where normally when you start it, you're gung-ho and you're ready to go, and you hit these walls or these sort of valleys, and it slows down. It affects your rhythm. I think that a job search can be a very fast route to burnout, because you don't always know, am I doing the right things? Am I seeing the results that I want to see? When you're working, your rate or your timeline to burnout is actually stretched out much longer to get there, because you do get feedback and you do have results and you do have things that you can say, hey, I've been doing this kind of work and it's got a payoff. You don't always get that feedback in a job search, so it's tough. So your job search outside of the summer might be 20 to 30 hours a week. But in the summer, I would say enjoy the summer too. Make it a 10 to 15 hours a week. Be very consistent, be very disciplined, have a structure, create your rhythm, stick to it, even when you're having doubts. Don't, take your foot off the gas. Keep your program going. And I will say for some people, they don't like to stretch it over the 5 days. They like to make it a 3 day week. That's fine. If you want to put 5 hours a day in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's okay. Just make sure you've got your process, you've locked it down, and you commit to it, that you're consistent and you commit to it and you don't take your foot off the gas. Additional action plan that I'm going to put for you of what I would recommend that you do for the summer. Touched on some of these already, but just to make it very clear, build your target list. 20 to 25 companies. You can tier them if you want. Like, here's my A list, my B list, my C list, or a heartworm, sort of a research list. But just make sure that you have a clear target list. Second, make sure your LinkedIn profile is working. And if you don't know this already, keep making changes and updates to your LinkedIn profile. It's part of informing the new AI-powered algorithm as to who you are and what you do. So it is smart to keep updating. And you won't be triggering any kind of alerts to people if you just change your content on LinkedIn. So keep updating your profile. Make sure it is really speaking to the audience that you want to have find you. If you see job postings that really speak to what you want to do, and you think that your profile is mirroring that, go back and look at it and maybe add in some language that is more in line with what you actually see in those job postings, because LinkedIn will be reading you and reading those job postings and trying to put you together. So make sure your LinkedIn profile is ready. Third, what we just talked about on the last slide, block those 10 to 15 hours. Make sure you have it very clear. If you have to tell your family and your friends, hey, don't bug me during these times, that's okay. Go ahead and do that. Just make sure you've got that plan. Number 4, launch all 5 job search channels this week or next week, since today is Friday. Make sure you've got all 5 channels working for you. You don't want to take any of them off the table. They're all really important. And then the last thing, and people kind of overlook this, but remember the number 4 shift that I wanted you to make. I want you to get really good at talking about yourself. The number one thing I hear, and that Liz hears, is I don't like talking about myself. You got to be able to say, here's who I am and what I do and why it should matter to you and the impact that I'm going to make for you. So work on that. I would recommend that you record yourself on your phone so that you can look back at it. I even think what's better is to get somebody else to hold the phone recording you so that you actually feel like you're talking to a person, because I've tested this. When you practice by talking to a person, you actually are different than if you were talking to your phone or your computer or a mirror. So work on that, get really good at it so it's comfortable, and you can easily say in less than 30 seconds, here's who I am and what I do and why it matters to you and the impact I'm going to make. Just want to touch on a few things in case any of you are saying these things to yourself right now. There are some real concerns that people have when it comes to the summer or even any job search. So let's talk about them for just a moment. 1, people say all the time, I don't have a strong network. Now's your time to build it. If you don't have a strong network and you're like worried about what you're going to do during the summer is the best time to build the network, because people are less stressed, people have more time, you have fewer or less competition because there are fewer people who are applying and reaching out because they've all kind of started their summer, but you're not going to do that. You're going to keep your foot on the gas. Some people tell me that I keep applying, but nothing is moving. I get it. When you apply and you don't hear anything back, you feel like it's a dead end. I'm not big on making applying your number one thing that you do, but you want to make sure that you are still consistent with that. Every job search channel creates, the momentum that the applications cannot, but you still want to apply periodically, and you still want to do all the other parts of that job search, following those 5 channels. I know that there are some people on this call who would be thinking, I've been out of the market for a while. Like, I don't know what to do. This is all kind of foreign to me. I'm kind of nervous. Great. Summer is your time. Summer is when you can do that, where you are launching a more refined job search. It's 10 to 15 hours a week. You're building it up. This is when you can talk to people. Use it to warm up your relationships. Use it as a time to sharpen your story. Use it as a time to kind of get all the gears moving. Coming back to LinkedIn, because I hear this daily, LinkedIn feels pointless for my situation. I get that some people feel like LinkedIn isn't big. I would say in many, in many ways, LinkedIn can be more important than your resume in today's market, because there are fewer jobs that are posted, yet there are recruiters spending more than 50% of their time looking for people to fill the jobs that aren't posted. And so it's really important that you have LinkedIn ready to go. So if you are saying LinkedIn feels pointless, or you're saying, I don't like social media, you are missing a huge opportunity for something to work for you while you navigate the rest of your job search. So in short, I'm going to use my mom's old line, which is, you got to get over that, and you got to work through it. 5th thing here, I feel like I'm behind everyone else. You might be behind everybody else, but everybody else is slowing down for the summer, and you are going to keep a very consistent program, and you're going to have your rhythm. And so where everybody else is scaling back, you're going to hit your stride. It's like a marathon. And right now you're in that stride zone. And so everybody else is kind of slowing down, but you're not going to do that. And then last but not least, summer just feels like the wrong time. If you are still saying that right now in this workshop, hopefully I've already debunked that this is exactly what your competition is thinking, is that summer isn't a valuable time. And so that's why you're going to think differently. All right. Everyone else is looking at the beach. They're looking at trips. They're looking at airplane tickets. They are trying to go other places. You are going to get ahead during the summer. So seize the summer while others are wasting it. This is your window. Use it. Take advantage of it. Make the most out of it. And I guarantee you will keep your job search going. At the same time, I just want to tell you, when you're taking a job search at 10 to 15 hours a week, you got to do other things. And I think you've got to use this time to fuel your mind, body, and soul. Here are 9 things that you could do. Maybe adopting a kitten or a puppy is a little bit more than you want to, sign up for. But if that's what fuels you, like it would fuel me, I would love nothing more than that. Great. If you like hikes and walks, if you want to volunteer, if you want to take a kind of a staycation, any of those things are fine. If you just want to take a nap every single day because you don't get to do that when you're working, go ahead and do that. But find things in your job search or during your job search that are also for you to help kind of keep things going. So thank you for being here. Make the most of your summer. If you have questions, if you need help, if you want support, reach out to Liz or me. You can go to our website at Career Transformation Partners, and you can reach out to us that way. You can send us an email at info@Career Transformation Partners. If you want more information, you can go to our YouTube channel. We have been doing these workshops for over 3 years. There's a lot of great content in there to help you. For those of you who are on this watching live, we're going to start the Q&A session right now. For those of you who are watching the replay, thank you for tuning in. You can click the link in the description below to sign up for future Just Ask Julia sessions.